Hello and welcome to Heard. I'm your host, Kevin. We are celebrating the voices of all people and providing a space for their stories to be heard. You'll find us at www.heard.love, and it'll have a link to all of our channels, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Heard is an inclusive, please follow, subscribe, like, and comment for all the latest updates for all of our shows. Heard is an inclusive, affirming, egalitarian community, and we are so glad that you are here. I hope whoever you are, wherever you find yourself on the journey of faith, no faith, somewhere in between, you'll find something here that speaks to you. I'm happy today to have a very special guest, Kristen Crouch. I met Kristen while I was in high school, many moons ago. She was maybe like 5, 6, or 7 or something like that. I just remember you running around the house. I was good friends with her late brother, Joshua Crouch. Josh and I went to high school and church together for a few years. I always loved Josh's smile, his ability to make me laugh. He would get me in trouble in band class because we'd laugh so hard. His eccentric personality fit right in line with mine, and we always had fun together. While we grew apart as we left high school and moved on a little bit, I thought of him often until I learned of his untimely death in 2006. At the time, he was working with an incredibly diverse and multicultural hip-hop group named Mind Spray, and had recorded multiple albums under the name Leftist. His message and his music at the time spoke out against and challenged the policy of the very divisive Bush-Cheney administration, the war on terror, and the official story of 9/11. Mm-hmm. While at the time of his death, I was a young white Republican, his death was a pivotal part in my life, and it helped me see outside of my conservative Southern white roots. I found his death and his life to be prophetic in many ways, mm-hmm. and that's what brings us here today, especially in light of our current social and political climate. Kristen is an artist and a curator in Portland, Oregon, and much like her brother Josh, she is drawn to learning about and connecting with people. I love it. She believes art should not be reserved for or divided into specific classes of society, but that everyone is creative because all of life reflects it. As an artist and a curator, this drives her passion for inspiring empathy, joy, and human connection through the discovery of shared experiences and memories. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited. That was an awesome intro. Thanks.
Yes, I was running this morning and kind of remembering some of my memories of Josh. I did not know him as well as some of our mutual friends, but we always had a good time together, and I loved him. I remember one time we were driving around a local. I was probably 16. We were in my car, and we were driving around Greenville Loop, road in Wilmington. And it was late at night, and we kept coming to this stoplight, which was the gas station. And we would take a left and realized every time we got to it that it was a loop. So, so we did it a few times. And it's like a 20-minute drive. You're like, man, are we getting anywhere?
Is it the one off of, I think I know who you're talking about because I used to run them streets back in the day too. Off of Carolina Beach Road.
Yes, exactly.
It takes you back around.
Yeah. So you don't, especially when you're 16, and at the time there was a lot less construction around there. So we were just like, mm-hmm. I don't feel like we're getting where we're supposed to be going. But anyway, mm-hmm. I cannot stress enough. Like, I had probably 4 of my friends that I knew from high school die in my 20s, and every one, it kind of wakes you up. You're like, this doesn't seem right. Like, I shouldn't be going to this funeral right now. But mm-hmm. Josh's is one that really shook me because it was so, untimely. And I remember running into your dad at a local restaurant, and before he died, and I was like, how's Josh doing? And he mentioned, oh, he's okay. He's just, doing the hip hop thing, and he thinks this Bush stuff is just, he
didn't really. My dad at the time was like, Bush.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yes. And I was too. I mean, to be an American meant to be pro Bush. Like the world was nowhere like it is right now. We're talking about, 16 years ago. So I I remember kind of, laughing with him and saying, well, that's cool, tell him I said, hey. But after he died, and after I began to question a lot of mainline evangelical concepts and Republican ideals and where all that works together, a lot of that driving force was the music I had heard from Josh and just his death in general as a reminder, Kevin, you don't have the rest of your life. So you need to know what you stand for. So anyway, that's where we are. And that's what I love so much about you, because everything you're doing is, the way I perceive it, is kind of a reflection of that same message in so many ways. Like,
totally.
yes. So take it away.
Yeah, well, first I remember you from the Vineyard. I feel like that's where I first like I just have this memory of all of Josh's friends. Like there was like the high schoolers would like sit on the left side and like had their, like they were all cool and straight edge, like hardcore kids. But no, I just am thinking of this. I forgot where I heard this, but to me, it makes a lot of sense of kind of this reflection of, when did your childhood end? And for me, it was when I was 15, September 2006. And, it's like, it's almost as if my life was like divided into before Josh died and after. I don't want to think of it that way, but, and I also over the years have, I don't want to like do everything I do just because of Josh, but it does inspire so much of my philosophy of life. Just like what you're saying, you realize, that anything can happen. And truly, not just like said to us as kind of a cliche thing, but to experience death in that way is, we all will at some point, but to be 15, I just think that has really affected me in the forming of my philosophies, of my spirit. Yeah, because Josh was 9 years older than me, and I looked up to him so much. At the time, I wanted to go to fashion design school at FIT in New York City. And just a couple of days before, I was on the phone with him, and I was in a fashion design class at New Hanover because I had transferred to New Hanover High School because he went there, and I was like, I want to go where Josh went. And I was in a fashion design class, and he was like, we were planning a trip to New York City to go to just like, see the city. And I was telling him, and he's like, oh yeah, you can come over and we'll do like a photo shoot. And, he always encouraged me. He's like, you should go and do it. And then, I ended up going to school for photography, but that, I think he really influenced my creative pursuits. I was always creative. I grew up dancing, but, it was always some kind of creative expression. But yeah, I ended up going to school for photography, which kind of led me to sculpture and curating. But yeah, he always, I just looked up to him so much, and it was almost kind of like that idealistic view of like my big brother, Joshy, the hero. And
so I forgot that Eric, it's you, and then Eric's in the middle, right?
Eric. We can't forget about Eric. Eric is right in the middle. So 4.5 years above me, and he and Josh are like 4 years apart. So Eric was 19 when Josh died, which was super hard. He had just gone to New York City after he graduated high school, and spent a week or 2 weeks, I think, up there with Josh, and they like really bonded. And I kind of, I for a long time was a little bit jealous and resentful of their relationship after Josh died, because I felt like I didn't get that time to get to know him.
Yeah.
So when I then fast forward 6 years being in college, in like my junior year, in a photo seminar class, we had a little project, and I combined some photos of Josh, and my professor said, I want you to do this for my class. And that was the first time that I started really making work about it, about my experience and about his death, and like how I felt about it and my own way of grieving. Because for so long, I still felt like I was being played by my that's not the right way to say it. I felt like I was always in this role of the little sister who we wanted to keep like a naive view of what happened. Like, I still have never seen the police reports or anything, and I've been asking my parents for years to let me find them, and now to let me see them, and now they say they don't, they can't, they have to find them, you know. And so they almost wanted to have me keep this view of him so that they could hold on to something innocent. And you know, it was tragic the way he died, and I want to know what happened. And that, to you know, that relates to the corruption of the police department, all of that. But anyway, I started doing this work, and I can show you some of the work that I did for Josh.
So this is it was you're 21 at the time?
22. 22, 23. Let me see. So I for my senior thesis exhibition, I did a show called I Will Live On, which was something that Josh had written in his notebooks. And so to begin this work, I started, what is this like toolbar thing?
At the very, I don't know. At the very top.
Oh, maybe you can't see it. Anyway, so I feel like I'm kind of stumbling over my words here, but so I started going through these old boxes of Josh's stuff that had been taken from his apartment in Brooklyn and put up into my aunt and uncle's attic that had never been looked at because my parents didn't even want to have it in the house. And I went up there. I was like 21, 22 when I started this work. And I went up there and started going through it. I'm in my cousin's room, and I'm just on break. I took a weekend and drove home from school to go get this stuff. And
wait. And so it's photos of Josh. It's just family photos.
So what was in Josh? It was all of Josh's belongings from his apartment in Brooklyn. And there were notebooks. Main thing were the notebooks that I was going through in that trip. The first time that I looked at all this stuff, I found all these notebooks of his, and the little like boxes of little mementos, you know, and pictures of me that he had, you know. And it was like, I remember it being such an emotional time because it was just this whole like stepping into this whole other world of his mind. And so the notebooks inspired so much of this show.
So
the title. So the title of the show is called I Will Live On, and it comes from what Josh wrote, which I have some other photos that I should have pulled up, but Josh wrote I Will Live On in one of his notebooks. And so that became the title of the show, and the title for the works came from his journal entries.
So did he keep a daily journal?
It was just like a notebook, you know, ideas. A bunch of notebooks that were just like ideas and little, I can pull those up too.
So let's
Because
back.
I have scans of them all, but yeah, sorry, I don't
Yeah.
want to get too far.
No, you're good. So let's back up for a second. You're,
Yeah,
after Josh dies, your parents are, of course, very emotional. At some point, they get all of his belongings and they get them to your aunt's house and put them in the attic, almost to say,
yeah,
we don't want to remember any of this. We
yeah.
just want to get past this.
Well, it was just not, it wasn't that. It was just at the time, it was too hard. So when I don't know how his belongings got from New York to North Carolina, but
Mhm.
it was very soon after he died. Um, and I think it was just like in the kind of like high emotions of the time was we don't want to I don't actually know. I should ask my aunt and uncle because
Yeah.
they might have just taken it out of like they don't need to see this stuff right now
Hmm.
because it's going to be too hard. It's just going to tear open wounds. And so it wasn't like they wanted to forget about it, but it just there's so much memory in objects, and it was just too hard for them to see kind
But
of the last things that he was writing and the last things that were in his room.
your artwork kind of bridges the gap,
It does. Yeah.
which
And
is
so
really
this is one of
incredible.
those notebooks. This is one of those notebooks. And I actually have this sculpture here in my room. But this is one of the notebooks, and I'm going to go grab it because it's so fun to look at the type of things that he was writing, where his mind was as a 24-year-old.
Okay, and let's go there real
So,
quick. So, help us set the scene, because I gave a brief overview of how I know him and his involvement in Mind Spray, but I didn't really describe it for someone that doesn't understand. And we have to remember that
sure,
it's
sure.
2020, and 2004 or 2006 was 14 years ago. And I
Yeah.
actually could have listeners, if I actually have listeners, that are like listening to this that were like 4 years old then. So,
Mhm.
can you help us like set the scene and of like the political culture
Mm.
and his role in all of this? Because like right now, if I go outside with a sign, especially today, if I go outside in my neighborhood with a sign that says Black Lives Matter, I might get a horn beep and no one really cares. If I would have done that in 2004, it would have been like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, well, so Josh was a hip hop artist. He went to New York City to be an actor. He was an actor and went to American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And that's where he met Concept. Morgan is Morgan's his God-given name, but Concept is his hip hop name. And so Josh and Morgan formed Mind Spray, which was a like underground hip hop crew of probably over 10 or 12 guys,
wow.
10 or 12 people. And they they were, like you said in the intro, they were just, I like to call them artivists, which is comes from, I've heard another crew mate, Mind Spray guy who I now work with, Dialect, calls, he likes to say
Hmm.
artivist. And I love that term because um they were using, they were of all different cultures and backgrounds, and they came together with the hip hop. And hip hop, Dialect and I just had a conversation about this. Hip hop has always been a leaderless movement. And
Oh, wow.
you come together as a crew, and you're sharing all of these experiences, but the passion for the music brings you together in this kind of like energetic, positive environment that is able to, because of that kind of positive, like communal energy, even with the crowd, you're able to introduce like these challenging ideas because there's just something like I don't know. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah.
I feel like it allows you to introduce like challenging ideas because it's not so heavy, but like people are still getting the message and it still rings true today. You know,
I think
I
of
think that they for sure were prophets, our modern day prophets speaking truth, regardless of like who's going to like them for it, speaking truth to what's going on.
I think of comedy, which is an art form in its own. And if you can
that's
make
what I was
people
going to
laugh,
say.
yeah.
And comedians are like our modern day prophets. They're just speaking the truth about things that are happening. And, it's always those types of voices that aren't really regarded to their fullest, measure until after the fact. And it's almost like seems too late, but that's why I focus on it. That's why it motivates me to seek the truth over feeling good or being right. Or
yeah. Or being seen as right.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Yes. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I think that today, what we have with the onset of the internet is people want to be right. They want to feel good. They want to like be in the right hashtag. They want to be in the right following. And I don't think that people are really digging deeper to really seek the truth.
Yes.
So with my brother and his crew, this has been my soundtrack lately. I had Concept and Dialect send me the album that they made for Josh right after he died called What's Left.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a whole compilation of their music. And let's see if I can play one and see if we can hear it.
Okay.
Can you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Evil imperialism and capitalist dictatorship, resistance is real patriotism. The more we sit and recline, the less active we're inclined to be. Oh, say, can you see? Some states were united, blind leading the blind, we did misguided. Nine idols who call themselves righteous, publishing devices, controlling present crisis.
So,
okay, I want to. Yeah.
I want to play it all for you.
Okay.
It's so good.
Yeah. Well, okay, and I'll put a link in the notes to how they can hear the entire album.
Uh-huh.
But I want to set the scene for a second, especially if someone wasn't like 18
Sorry,
at the
I know
time.
I'm trying not to be all over the place.
No, you're not.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, at the time, Bush Cheney, and this is after 9/11.
Yes. Okay.
What you're wanting?
Yeah. But let's say this: after 2001, you were either seen as almost like a terrorist or a patriot. And it was like America united. And if there was a time that they could take us to war under the guise of patriotism, that was the time. Because we had never been attacked, I guess, except for maybe Pearl Harbor, to that degree.
Which was also they knew about.
Okay, there you go.
Beforehand.
Yes. So that's why I love it. So that's
it's wild. It's wild stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, so at the time, it was America together. It was patriotism. It was, we are a united front. You're either with us or against us. And so Josh's voice in that moment is not like a voice of dissent right now. A voice of dissent, I feel like right now, it's like 40% of our population is like dissenting. At the time of Josh's dissent, at the time of this music, I feel like it was like 1, 2, 3%. Because you were just seen as unpatriotic. You were seen as an outcast to the nth degree.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an idea.
Yeah, and I think about too, like how many more crews like him, like his, were also speaking to this in their own communities. Because Mind Spray, I have to get this album online because it was on CD Baby and they have stopped doing that. So I got to get it online even. Which I want to. I did post one video, People's History, which is Josh's first song on this album, which is, I'm telling you, this stuff is, it's crazy to me because, all of that was happening and they were such an underground movement. And like, to my parents, to my dad, it was
anti-American.
it was so polarized, you know. Yeah, but he was a prophet, because now, you know, my mom and I share this music and just reflect on how ahead of his time they all were, and that he was a genius, you know. I mean, I just always feel like that, just so, like, 24, because I think about when I was 24, the things I was concerned with, and I think even, yeah,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was, and I think that they were able to have the momentum to continue to, like, make this type of music and to speak out against what was going on, because they had the group, they had their crew. Not to say that, like, you have to conform and, like, you have a group, but there's
Yeah.
something about community.
Yeah.
There's something about community, that they were all came from such different backgrounds and different cultures, different countries, but came together to, like, seek the truth. And I think that that is what stands out to me today too, and, like, encourages me, is, like, through artwork, I think these things can make change. So
Yeah, and just like through music, and like you said, through the group, you can send messages that you otherwise either couldn't send or might be hard to communicate.
right,
Yes.
because, you know, that each one of them had their own home communities that's information was being dispersed, like, to you and to my parents and to me, where it still stays with us. And I think it's that kind of, that's where the ripple happens, you know. I just believe that empathy creates a ripple to reach people, and they did that. They weren't afraid to, like, speak out and distribute, like, the truth. I don't know.
Well, okay. In that clip you just played, well, let me back up. The album that I have is Leftist Concept. Is what's the name of that one?
Is it called Intervention?
Yes, that's the one that I have in my iTunes. And the other day I was listening to it, and I was like, oh my God, it sounds like he's talking about right now, which is the whole prophecy prong. And it's specific. A while ago, he was talking about capitalistic policies and what have you. So these aren't just like generic ideas and, oh, well, maybe he hit the nail on the head. You even talked a while ago about how he talked about Bill Riley.
Oh yeah. That, I could play that part. I think it's in this song. Let me see. Here's a little bit more from the same song. Sexual harassment. It's been a long time and peace of president. Why do we shut our eyes to this evidence? Will our troops ever come back from Iraq? No clear reason why we attack. Yeah.
No clear reason why we attack. And by the way,
George Bush wants see this. So it's the size and the eyes of competition. No, really? Does it benefit or restrict our inner wisdom from this convincing conviction? Consisting of guilty religions and who we trust. Got him going crazy. Because his face is a certain relation.
Anyway, this was 2006. Bill O'Reilly got fired, I think, in 2017 for sexual harassment. And there was, like, info, and this is I'm trying not to go, like, too far into the web.
Yeah,
but there's just so many things that we are so, like, I think, indoctrinated by party politics, which is bolstered by the media.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in a time of social media where it's almost like a guerrilla type information being shared because the internet is a tool to silence people as well as to find information, and we just have to be really aware of how we're using it. But I think that this movement right now it has the momentum it does because of the internet, because of social media. You know, kind of being that same kind of beacon that Mind Spray and other types of groups and artists were at that time. But that's why it's so much bigger too, to share like experience and information and like and things that are happening, because that's what they were doing, but that's what now everyone has the ability to do on their phone.
And I just don't want to forget that, like, the prophet speaks truth to power. The prophet is usually forward thinking, or can see, or is saying something that no one else wants to hear, which back to comedy, that if you can make people laugh, it's almost like they're admitting to how uncomfortable they are with the situation. And so anyway, the prophetic voice is always speaking truth to power, and it's making them uncomfortable. And that's what his music does. And so the question for me is not like, how do we hear this and say, oh, well, he was ahead of his time, and where can we see the parallels now? But now the question is, how can we look forward, and what is the next prophetic voice, or what are the next values that we need to be looking at? And like, now's the perfect timing for that, with everything that's going on around the world.
Well, I think when I think of the internet as playing a huge role into everything that's going on right now, it also has destroyed empathy.
Oh, wow.
And we don't have conversations anymore because it's been replaced with clicks and comments. And I won't take credit for that little quote. That comes from an interview, a conversation that I just watched between two pastors, actually. And we can get on religion too, because I would love to get into that with you too. But it was a really powerful conversation about what's going on, and not, the church. That's the whole thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think that we have this false sense of connectivity through the internet, and we see the lives of people taken so far out of context, and the visual creates such an immediate emotional response in a human. And so we see the thing, we respond, and then our own set of biases are going to form the way that the assumptions that we're making about a situation and the people involved. And so I think that the internet too is dangerous in that way, because we've become so reliant on using it for like creative expression and spreading a message and hashtag everything, and then people will see it without having real conversation with people. Oh, wow. And so I think that we have to come back to community, and we have to have discussion, because also the internet has provided us these really neat echo chambers where we can just filter out the information that we don't want to hear and have a conversation with people who agree with us. And it makes us feel good. It's not about seeking the truth. It makes people feel good. It makes them feel like justified in their opinion. And I think that's really dangerous, because, what happened, what happens in 10 years from now as we continue down that road? I think that we just we like resegregate ourselves and just continue to create like these little pockets and corners in the world where we just feel good and have a safe place. But seeking the truth is not safe, and it's not going to always feel good. And it gets me talking about Christ and the life of Christ and how he challenged everything, but he talked with and interacted with people who were so different from him and who were unclean, and whatever language, the Torah uses. And that, people take him out of context, but we have to be willing to have conversations with people who disagree with us, and to not argue, but to hear all different points of view. I think that we've become so consumed with being political, but I just really think it's a way to distract us into oblivion, you know, to just be shown the next thing that we should be angry about, and then we're going to follow order. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, the CIA is the law enforcement of the executive branch of government, and they're using, man, it's really scary stuff. And that's kind of where I'm at in researching things, and people aren't, you know, then you're just called a conspiracy theorist. And that's also a tactic that has been employed by the media to hide the truth.
So you have like this two-party system, or these two main perspectives that are debating an issue, and as long as they keep fighting and remain divided and keep focused on this,
we'll
over
keep
here
voting.
you have with that, and then also over here you have a completely other situation going on that everyone's ignoring. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
That is what it is, because right now, the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton have been in court hearings right now, and no one even knows about it. For Obamagate, which was I don't take a side of Republican or Democrat. I just believe that, you know, we are it, and that's where we've become so divided. What we're seeing now is the result of a two-party system.
Yes.
What we're seeing now, and I think people thrive on it because it's election year and people want to get reelected. So they're going to cause a stir so that you recognize their name on the ballot as someone who was, you know, doing this or that months ago. And it's so corrupt. And I do believe the system is clearly flawed, but I don't know that we have our finger on it yet, because we are just, it's this thing.
Yeah.
that it's this thing that is the reason why we're corrupt, why the system is flawed, and what are we going to do when really all this other stuff is going on?
Yeah.
And it continues the cycle of corruption because we're not really able to vote out these people who are making laws.
Which comes back to the term limits.
More than half of Congress are millionaires.
Yeah.
Around only 6% of Americans are millionaires. And so how is that a representative body? If the Congress is literally written into its description as representing the people, it doesn't. And it's so obvious and it's so insulting that we get to these cycles of outrage, and all of that stuff is still going on. And people talk about dismantling the system. Well, we need to figure out a way to really do that. Your vote is not going to do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here might be a what's the word, an unpopular opinion, but here we are.
I love it.
If statistically people of color tend to vote Democrat, and they have been since the 60s, thanks to Lyndon B. Johnson, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Why has nothing changed then for them? If they vote for Democrats, why have those Democrat leaders not written law. Why is the system racist?
Well, it's a carrot thing, and they keep kind of moving us along slowly and making us feel like we have progress and enough to keep you kind of hooked on the system. And so so do you see the promise in the worldwide protests right now? Because I feel like those are saying, wake up. Like, I feel like those are a little bit bigger than a two-party system. Do you think or not?
No.
Okay.
I think, well, we'll see what happens. I shouldn't say that, but I think we'll see what happens after November.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's bring it back to where we were a little while ago. We kind of set the scene. We're both ADHD, so that's perfect.
I know.
No, it's good. So we set the scene with Josh and his message, and then you coming back, going through your aunt's attic, finding a lot of this stuff. And now we have Kristen Crouch's voice that you use in your artwork. So let's look at the parallels there, because,
Sure.
and tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, I have really become, I guess my form of expression has become curating. And in a lot of the shows that I have curated and organized are responses to kind of things that are happening in the community. And I guess my whole like philosophy would be inspire, like what you said in the beginning, inspiring empathy through the discovery of shared experiences. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't, I think that there are universal human experiences, and like death, like love, and those to me are so important into forming the human spirit. And so those are the kinds of things that I focus on, are like, what are the things that are going to unite us truly, and not further divide us, you know. I'm not, I just want to say, like, I'm not disregarding anything that is going on in terms of the clear oppression of people throughout history. But I think my approach is different into maybe solving some problems. And my approach is celebrating culture and celebrating our differences and finding the ways that we can come together and just create like this vibrant, you know, piece of history through the curating of artwork and through the curating of voices and multisensory experiences. You know, a lot of my work is inspired by memory, and has evolved from the work for Josh. That's where I started my this distortion process. And now the main work that I do, which is kind of in progress here also, is memoryscapes, which I combine images using an algorithm that I've created in Photoshop that is numerically based.
You created it?
And well, it's just kind of a algorithm, you know, sounds like, but it's a process that I use, that I've been doing like really since, I don't know, I guess 6 years, that has evolved over time and become more refined into this like meticulous process of abstracting something, but through it's like planned spontaneity, because abstraction is actually really hard. And a lot of people look at it as like, oh, my kid could do that. But that's kind of why I want to have such a meticulous process, because every part of it may look like just very distorted and without direction, but it comes from such a like set of
Oh yeah. No,
value,
no.
you know?
The video you showed me earlier, if you can play that and then show the final
Yeah.
product, it is incredible.
All right. So yeah, my memoryscapes, let's see. Let me get to these. And I will show, yeah, so these are some of the pieces, but the videos, I started doing the videos as a way to kind of help people, bring people into the process. And so let's get it on YouTube. So this is actually a piece that was my brother and our cousin from London, my Nana's nephew. And when he first met them in London. And so I'm gathering geographic location data as some of the numerical data that comes into the work. And I've used the address of where my Nana lived during World War II in England. And I've taken a screenshot of that to use as a texture. I'm using, and that's me in front of her house. And then I'm using like numerology and kind of like life path number and all of these kinds of things to reduce images down to pixels. So it's all a way to kind of gather assets to form a distortion. So you can see all my layers here. And these colors, I create colors using significant dates of people's life. So if I can pause it here and maybe slow it down.
Oh, wait, your RGB values
Yes.
are birth
So
dates.
it's CMYK.
Yeah.
And so
I see.
what I'm doing is creating, let's see if I get one here. Yeah, so I plug in birthdays into CMYK values, and that'll give me a color.
Oh my God, I love it.
And so I then use those colors, because you know Photoshop.
Yeah.
So I have this grid that comes in. I have this grid that represents days of each month. And I put that over these layers and select out, let's see if I can show you part of that. So this grid right here is months and days of the month. And so with that on the top layer, I am using the magic wand selection tool, which is kind of selecting random pixels that kind of relate to each other because of color. And I'm using that magic wand and I'm like choosing like June 3rd, which would be down right here. And I would on a layer beneath select that point, and then you can see how it selects a kind of random pixel. So this idea of planned spontaneity, it's like I don't even know what I'm selecting because I'm on this grid. So like, but I'm selecting a date, a birthday that's important, and then it'll choose all these pixels that I'll then make a new layer and then continue to interweave them. And I also have kind of taught myself trigonometry because I love triangles, and I assign trigonometric, I assign people's birthdays into like a trigonometric function. And so I have in some of the work, like I have triangles also doing that, like where I'll put the triangle over the image and then select, okay, this part of the triangle, this part of the triangle, this part of the triangle to get this random selection of layer of pixels. Sorry, I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are.
And so, but that triangle was made maybe using, actually I could show you too, but the triangle would have been made using one person where I take their birth year and their their birthday as like two sides and an angle.
Yeah.
Because the angle is always a birth year because you know it's going to be less than 180. And so I like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. No,
but I will like, does that make sense? I wonder if
Yes.
I have videos of me doing that one. But anyway, I'll like create triangles based on people in my life. And that has also come in
Where's that final one that you showed me earlier?
right. Okay. So let's get.
What I'm picking up on is there's like this degree of faith in what you're doing.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Which is
Because
what
I go
is really
into it,
blowing my mind.
I don't have any idea how it's going to end up. And so a lot of it is like really forming a composition like I'm painting. And I am distorting these together. And then I might get to a point where I like the colors, which are, again, coming from important dates. And then this one, you know,
Wow.
it's all just kind of based on what I'm feeling. And I'll go through and yeah.
So,
like,
yeah.
Interweave these layers together. And so that
was
good.
a note.
That's what I was wanting to see. So perfect that it
So
came up.
there's like this idea of
these are Josh's notes. This is from his notebook that I was talking about. Make it happen. Everything works itself in due time. I feel older than I really am, but what does it feel like to be old? Is there a feeling for old? Always strive to be enduring. Don't get sucked in. At least put up a fight. Always settle for the best. I will make it. I will make it. I will make it. I will make it. I will make it.
Okay, so what I'm picking up on is there's a faith in the process, but there's also there is somewhat of an element of control, but the overarching theme is trusting the process itself.
Yep. That's a metaphor for life, baby. That's why it all, yeah. And so you let go a little bit, you trust where you've been. It's like using your memory, using your past to inform the direction of where you want to go. Not dwelling on the past, just holding on to this box of stuff, but making something out of it. And so this piece,
and you're not afraid
I'll
to play.
show you. You have to. Josh talks about that too. There's one video of him where he says, just have fun. If you're not having fun, then what are you doing? And so that piece ended like this is the digital finish of that.
Wow.
And then the printed version has a little bit more media added on top of it. And actually, it's funny. This piece right here.
Yeah.
I was actually using the printer that I got from you guys. Remember, I did a work trade and I got that printer. So this is metal, and the metal runs through the printer. I've printed this image onto a coated piece of metal. This is like a thin aluminum, and this specific print got stuck in the printer while it was printing. And so what you see right here is I pulled it because I was like, I'm not gonna. I used to like be so obsessed with having it be a perfect print.
Yeah.
And a lot of the earlier work was like I would reprint, and because if you print and it messes up, you can wash off the ink from the metal and recoat it and reprint it. But I just for this one I literally while it was printing, I pulled the part that like I pulled the metal to get get it out from where it was stuck. And it like it like pulled over, because there's like these grabbers in the printer, and it pulled over the print and created these grids, which kind of looked like pixels to me.
Wait.
So then
what was your first reaction?
So that was a mistake. I was like, oh, damn it. Like,
yeah,
I worked, but then I was like, you know what? And so I did. I was like, I am just going to use this. And that was kind of the first time that I did that. And, it came into I'm trying to get it better. Anyway, it came into the work. And so you can see, this is the original, the digital, and that's the print. And then I drew over it a little bit too. And so that, using your mistakes, highlighting the mistakes to just let it be what it is. You can't control all of life. You'll go crazy if you try.
Okay. So my brain's kind of going in so many different places. One is like, where does the art of being present play in all this?
Well, it comes from the way that I'm responding to each layer. And so the work starts as this, like as an image. So
you don't get hung up. You don't get hung up.
So I actually have been reflecting on that of how it's present. And so this originally came from a photo of my friend in the park in Forsyth Park in Savannah when I was probably like 20. And it was such a beautiful time of my life. And I have kind of used him as a muse for a while. And I created this digital edit, and I've done a couple iterations of it. This was one that was done for a show back in 2018. Wow. And I'm like working over the image. Again, you see the print got stuck. I have a video of this time lapse too, of me literally being frustrated printing this. You can see me doing it. And I had to print it like 3 times, and I just let it repeat like that. And so to me, that's like the present, is like not trying to back it up and make it better, but just moving forward with what it is. And so you have,
I love it.
Because this is the original.
Wait, is that part of the Full Frontal project? Or
no, this was from a show, Landscape and Memory, which was a solo show. But no, this is the digital edit, and so you can kind of see it right here, like that, how that is 3, because the print got stuck. I've had so much issue, like when working with these technical equipment, like you can never, it's always going to have a glitch. And so I stopped trying to control that. And so that was one iteration. And then I also created like these sculptures from some earlier test prints. And that was like, it's kind of messy. I think my assistant and I just started like hammering it out. And like, it was a fun kind of way to transform that piece and that memory. And then this is the most recent one I did. And I have videos of this also where I've really started to go in and work over it. And so what happens is, as I'm working now, 8 years after that original photo was taken, there are these layers that are being brought out as I'm using the Dremel tool and as I'm using these micron
that's
pens.
pigments? Okay.
Yeah, so this is the print, but then it's micron pens and like a Dremel tool and pastels, where I'm going in and I'm highlighting, I'm accentuating it, some of these areas. It's really fun. I'll like go in really close and out, and like there's these teeny tiny little squares that I'm then outlining. It's kind of digging in to the image, digging in and bringing it forward, and then pushing parts back and creating this really present moment where I'm like, there's this overlap of the past and where I'm at now with this person, and like all of the stuff I'm thinking about as I'm doing the work. And then it becomes this new experience that is rooted in the present moment.
I love the bottom left is like drawing me into it, but then I'm like, I feel
Exactly.
conflicted. And so I think it's so perfect.
Yeah, and it's fun. I work in all directions. So as I'm doing these on my wall, I turn them every way as I'm working. And then right here I have I've written in the geographic location of where the original photo was taken. Just as a hint. But it, you know, to me it's like a storm, it's an ocean. It's
Yes.
like there are these moments where it's solid and it's stable, like in this like very geometric form, mixing in with the organic form. And so it's really this convergence of the mind and the spirit.
Yeah.
And it is like a, you know, and so it's really fun. And I'm just happy to have something that I love to do even now, you know, and that is able to evolve. And that's why the process is so many layers, because it just allows it to evolve as it needs to be in my moment.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's really fun. And I've, you know, had a long journey too of trying to articulate the work, and that's also fun for me, because I just love to go into my mind and intellectualize things and as a solutionary, just figure out what it means. And so like everyone has their own, like you can think of a moment, an event, and you're going to see it differently in your head than anyone else. And so I think that's really interesting that the mind has that ability to create this scene that is really based on your own experiences.
Yes,
So that's where we're at today.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of brings us into how we're all responding to the current moment. Is I think much of it is based on our experiences, our personal experiences, and we're kind of going deeper into isolating ourselves based on our experience rather than on where those experiences have brought us.
I like to say it's been said, but it hasn't been said with your voice. And then the next thought is, well, my voice doesn't matter, or my voice sounds just like this voice. No, it doesn't. The way you perceive it is individualistic in so many ways. But if you don't raise your voice, you'll never know that. If you don't put something on paper, you'll never see it.
Yeah, and I think we have to be, you know, it's hard work to think for yourself, especially in the times that we're living in. And it's hard work, and not many people want to do it, you know. I don't think they even realize that we're being taught what to think, not how to think.
Douglas Rushkoff, I went to see him. He's an author, a blogger, and a writer and things. I went to see him at UNCW. He talked about how I probably saw him 10 years ago. He talked about how the internet or computers and programming is built on the idea of zeros and ones, and it's always making a decision for you. And it's a dichotomy, I believe. So the dualistic thinking. Yes, there you go. And so he said, be the programmer of your own life. But he also talked about how the power is between the 0 and the 1. Like when you think of the Ark of the Covenant in the Old Testament, you see the photos of like looks like a gold box with like an angel on either side. He said the presence of God existed in the center because that's where the tension is. And so you're always trying to find yourself in that tension. Or you listen to Alan Watts, which I've really been digging Alan Watts. He talks about you see a wave and you think the top of it is the wave. Well, the bottom of it is just as much of the wave as the top. But you just, for whatever reason, you think the top is the wave. So, and right now we are living in the tension between birth and death. So there's always this idea of tension. And anyway, so what I want to know, you talked about getting in your mind. you talked about getting your mind and then that kind of helping you, but you don't get stuck there. And what I don't understand is how you remain so free and so healthy. Are you just good at hiding your problems, or because I mean seriously, whenever you came to my studio,
this is it.
that's it. Okay, that's good. Because
what were you gonna say?
Yeah, whenever you came to my studio, it's like in a fancy gift shop is where my office was at the time. You showed up on your fixie with like half of your head shaved. I'm like, okay. I mean, it was like, it shook me a little bit, but I'm like, this is cool, It's just, it was, it was different for where I live and where we were at that moment. Yeah. But I was like, I like this girl. And I remembered you and everything. But I was like, I can't believe that she's in college and she's doing so well. And then I've just kind of followed you from afar. And you've just done so good for yourself. And I'm like,
thank you.
If I was your big brother, I would tell you how proud I am of you and how happy I am for you. And also from a selfish standpoint, I want to know how you do it, how you handle.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. I think we never see ourselves the way other people see us. And I am learning to get beyond that and I think a big thing that has helped me is to start seeing myself the way other people see me. Which is weird because we judge our own self and our own perceptions based on like the images in our mind,
Yes.
But I think what helps me, what always keeps me sane is getting it out. Like, yes. I go so deep into my mind. And in the past, I've gotten down these rabbit holes of conspiracy and Illuminati and like,
yeah,
it's regardless if that's true or not, whatever, it didn't make me feel good. Which I know I was talking about feeling good, but
no, I get it.
Your spirit though, like I felt like I was becoming so isolated, and I just try to focus on always finding a way to relate to people and finding there's always something that I believe that I can form a connection with someone. And also, yeah, the work is the tension of my mind and reality.
Oh, wow.
And so it becomes this wormhole, and it has to be there or else I'll get sucked into it.
That's an important element because, I like to study the Enneagram, and I don't want to put this on you, but I want to just assume you're a 4.
You talk about it. I don't know it enough. Okay. I don't know it enough, but yeah, they talk about it in my church group too. And I think it's interesting. I think there's more. Yeah, I think it's interesting. But there's always like a number and a thing. And
I get it. And it can get a little annoying, almost like someone telling you about the new diet in town. But my point is like, I can almost like, I would put money on the fact that you're a 4 and you're a very healthy 4. And 4s are the creative and the feeling types. They can get stuck in their feelings. And the antidote is to take action, meaningful, productive action. And so what I see with your artwork is like the perfect productive action to your feelings.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if I'm a feeler. Really in my Myers-Briggs, I'm a thinker. And I really try to balance emotion with logic. And I think that's what Oprah does too. That's a perfect way to respond is you think about the way you feel.
For that,
why you feel that way. And I take all the responsibility for the way that I feel in every moment. And maybe that's part of like how I deal of what you're asking me, because I feel like I probably have a lot of answers to that question. Another one is is just really the main thing is just being grounded in my spirit and in the Lord. And I just have, that's a whole other
podcast
interesting thing. But, again, I think that the pivotal experience in my life was the death of my brother, and seeing just my parents literally like feeling betrayed by God. And I went through like probably 10 years of that too. And had to, like, I didn't go to church after I graduated high school. I didn't go to church for like really consistently until this past fall, because it was just such a cult and I didn't feel comforted and like all of the, whatever, like I was told I would be. And I had to find comfort in my own spirit, and I had to find comfort in my own expression of what I was going through. And God met me there. And it was a personal thing, and it was like it's a personal relationship. And but I have come full circle to understand why I need the fellowship and why that's so important, because we don't live in this world alone. And if it was meant to be, then we would all live on our own earth, and we would, text each other.
No. And it's easy to get isolated, especially as a self-employed individual.
Yeah. So, I just realized I look to organic life, creation, whatever people want to say of how we got here, but it's there, the earth, growth. And I look to that, and I truly believe it is showing us how to live. And that's why I say all of life is creative, because all of life reflects it. And through the seasons, through composting, and the earth becomes nutrient for, it's just a beautiful cycle. And I think from whatever way you look at it, there are facts in that cycle of life, of like reproduction and growth and like decay, and death is not the end, like Gandalf says. It's just another part of the journey. And that's what a personal experience with death has shown me, and it has like directed me in how to live my life.
It seems like there's this tension between like, I'm living my life, but life is also living me. And then there's like this whole perspective of like, I'm watching Kevin live his life, which just makes me sound crazy. But
no, I feel you.
Yeah.
To look at yourself from outside of yourself, you will go crazy.
Yeah.
And unless and that's where I think that life, this might sound a little heady, but what I've come to is the purpose of life is to search for the purpose of life.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be however you define it. And so where is the common ground in those many different definitions? And I believe we're able to find that. And that's where, again, I'm like drawn to finding that connection in my work, is like, what is the universal human condition? And I've always hesitated to use that term in my artwork, because, going to art school, it's like my work is about the human condition. Like, I never understood what that meant, and I had to come to it on my own. But really it is that, like what you're saying, that tension, I think, is a perfect way to describe it. It's like that tension of like what is in your mind and what is outside of your mind, and what, I think that, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, whenever, hold on, before I forget, the Enneagram thing, you're probably like a 4-wing 5 or a 5-wing 4. I'm just gonna go. I'm just letting you know
I should
because
take it.
yes, because 5 is the investigator and they are the thinker. But anyway, you are a healthy number, whatever you are. But when I
Well,
think
thanks. I haven't always been, I don't think.
when I think about the life of Josh, I see the life of Jesus in that.
Mhm.
I see the life of Jesus in his life. And we talk about how in religious circles, we talk about, the Spirit of God is with us and dwells within us. You put on Josh's tombstone that, I can't remember the words, but it talks about him in present tense. And I thought it was beautiful. And
Where?
here, I'll find it. But, I just thought it was, the perfect. Let's see here. Hold on, I'm telling you. Let's see here. Of course, I can't bring it up now, but it mentions something about everyone that he touches, the life he touches, or everyone that he. Oh gosh, I had it and I found it. I had it saved, but it just said it says something on it, at least on the image that it pulled up on Google, about how for all the lives that he continues to speak to and to touch. And I thought it was really beautiful. Oh, here, loving son, brother, nephew, cousin, and loyal friend to all who know him.
That's not me. I don't know who wrote that. I was 15, but
yeah, I mean, that's incredible. That's beautiful. It almost looked like a typo at first, and I was like, no, someone put thought behind that, and I thought it was beautiful because the Spirit of Josh lives in you when you do your artwork, when you live in that tension, when you continue to live your life with a fervor, and you continue to ask the questions that no one else wants to ask, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, to get on like just the Spirit and the Spirit of Christ, I love history, and I love, like you saying, investigating things and uncovering things. And that kind of led me down this whole road of the history of the church and the history of Judaism and understanding that the original Christians were Jewish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why did it break? And it, because the Roman Empire was conquering everything. Mm-hmm. And so here we are again dealing with something that is sprung out of control and like power.
Yes.
And the life of Christ has been manipulated to form all these different religions because people just want to be right. And so you have the Jesus of LA is different than the Jesus of the South.
Yeah.
and we have put we've put God into these boxes that make us feel safe, and highlight parts of the gospel that kind of say what we want it to say. And we have to get back to viewing Christ as the anarchist that he was.
Now we're talking.
And understand that, like, he was fighting against organized religion and institutions and was murdered by his government.
An enemy of the state.
Just like John F. Kennedy, just like Malcolm X, just like Dr. King, and countless others who were murdered by their government for seeking the truth and for sharing the truth. And
because
that's
at that point they are a threat.
And I'm like, why? A threat to who?
To power.
And it is a threat to power. And that's why I believe big government is not the answer. Big government is the problem. And so we have to put the work into empowering our community and to, you know, that's where I think the true work is going to come, because that's the physical space. That's where empathy is formed, in the sensory experience where you have, you know, interactions and Christ created a community wherever he went.
Oh, wow.
And he was all over the place, but he created community wherever he went. And that's the way I want to live my life. And I think that, yeah, religion is tough. I mean, religion is so, it's a mess. And but I say that while still understanding the importance of the original church, the fellowship. But we are so far from that now, and it's a mess. And
I think, and I know it's a trigger for a lot of people. In fact, this podcast is kind of like directed towards people that have either ex-evangelicals or can see out of a lot of what is evangelicalism, specifically white evangelicalism. And it's important to speak to that because they've held the cards for so long.
Yeah, and I don't think that people today, the leaders or whoever, are inherently evil. But I think that they're apathetic more than, and maybe that is evil, but apathy is the end of humanity.
Yeah.
And I think the opposite of apathy is empathy. And so how do we inspire empathy like Christ, the woman at the well, the tax collectors, the lepers? I mean, who are those people today? Who are the lepers of today? Who are the tax collectors, the prostitutes of today? And we have to go beyond our group of disciples who are going to follow us everywhere to spread a message.
Yeah, and it's not very popular at times. Well,
and it's not, but no one ever said it would be.
Yeah.
And that's, again, to really read and view the Bible is, you know, we have the Torah, the Hebrew scriptures are too often avoided or painted as a like cute, like Noah's Ark picture, but it's so much richer and deeper. It's hard and heavy stuff.
Yeah. That
people just don't, you know, that's the full context. And we've taken Christ out of context of what he was. A rabbi, you know, he was a teacher and he was speaking about the Torah. And that's what I think a lot of, like, it's a disconnect for a lot of Christians today.
Sure.
Because they're like, they have been indoctrinated to separate Judaism from Christianity. And that's what led to the Holocaust, you know?
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, we have to come together as believers beyond our institutional religions to understand that Christ is, like, to understand the prophecy that from the beginning God had a plan, but it was like it was also like he was going to let people kind of figure it out. But it you know, it's kind of like that planned spontaneity thing of like,
Yeah.
But Christ, Christ is the full picture, and we have to view all of scripture in that light. And it's hard, and it's heavy, and it's dark, and it's, and I've kind of been on this road for like a year and a half of really digging into of the fuller picture of it. And even to understand that like the Bible, was written by men. And so it's tough.
No, I hear you. It's a journey. It's a journey you're on.
But it's a document of the life of the most perfect.
No, I understand.
Someone who everyone could look up to,
There's some tension.
Yeah, but
yeah. No, I hear you.
I don't have the right like articulation of words to kind of explain it, or it would be a lot longer. But
I understand.
someone like my Uncle Rick would be a great. You should have him on.
Okay.
Uncle Rick.
Yes, he's wonderful.
Oh man, mic drop all day if he comes on. I'm telling you what.
Let's do it.
You should have on Uncle Rick. He's amazing.
We'll do it.
But sorry for the long. I mean, there's so much to like the way that I view the world and the way that everything, and it's all kind of rooted in like how history comes into the present to form the future and like to change things, and we have to understand the full context of things before we start yelling about them.
Oh, it's beautiful. There's what
I don't know.
My takeaway from you is this trust in the process, but also your involvement in the process. And I think that is just amazing because a lot of times we see them as either or, and it's not. You're saying it's both. Here's my artwork. So
yeah, it is.
On that note, I better wrap it up because we're gonna go do a little.
I know. It's been a while, but thanks for talking, and this is a lot of fun. Yeah, I want to start a podcast, and I've been talking about it for a while. So we should talk, because I kind of want to do a live thing where I have people kind of call, like almost like a radio show type vibe, where we can just go and whatever comes up to talk about.
Yes,
we just talk. So I don't know how that works, but I'm interested in that.
And yeah, and I'll help you with that. We've done that on Herd a few times on Sundays. But anyway, if people want to know more about you, they can go to KristenCrouch.com.
Yeah.
Kristen Crouch is Crouch. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And there's links to like my Instagram there and my YouTube, which is a lot of behind the scenes. But I should also say, this shirt here is the current show that I'm working on, the Museum of Dead Words, which is with Dialect, who is one of Josh's. He was in Mindspray, and he and I have been working together for 3 years on this show that he wrote, all about communication in the age of the internet and how to inspire empathy as we navigate life online.
It says you have to preach to the choir. What does it say?
You got to preach to the choir so they know what to sing.
Oh, I love it.
It's a line from one of his songs from the album, which the show is a hip hop theater show that is a one-man show, and he wrote a whole album surrounding 11 words that died over misuse online, and that has really evolved into kind of like a broader, like more kind of rooted like dissection of issues. But right now we're doing an online version that I just wrote a call for entry, a call to artists to create to create a space that can be toured virtually. More information on that is also linked from my website, but
okay.
We're going to be doing a thing called the online series that is just a series of over 11 weeks of panel discussions, conversations, live art over, YouTube Live or over Zoom. And we're bringing the museum to us. And so there's more information. I know we've gone on for a long time, but
no, we're good.
But that's what I'm working on now. And we started 3 years ago, and when COVID hit, we were like, this feels like really relevant now. And it's just interesting how those things work and take shape. But yeah, we're asking artists to create a space, and there's 11 words in the museum. Some of them are racism, sexist, evil, truth, as these words that have been overused and used to shut down conversation because everyone has a different definition or can manipulate the definition of the word to kind of say whatever they want to say.
There's this idea of once you label me, you negate me. And that can also be,
So once I call you racist,
it shuts it down.
I don't have to listen to you anymore.
On both sides,
Yep. And so there's more information about that, but we'll be doing that starting in the end of August, running through November.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Through the middle of November. So yeah, that's what we're working on. So yeah.
KristenCrouch.com. I'm going to stop the recording for a minute. Okay. Thank you, Kristen.